So today we have a very special reading from each co-author, and I'd like to start with Lisa Marie.
Thank you, Chu. The mattress shifted as Allie traced the depression of paws before she felt the weight of one paw, then four, on her stomach as her cat Nala knew just where to find her nose and nuzzle with a soft meow. Allie's arms immediately wrapped around the soft, warm, furry friend to hug her in response. She then blew a heavy sigh to blow the hair out of her face so she could look at those mystical green eyes. Nala lay on her chest and stomach, settling down with soft paws as they were lying belly to belly. Allie felt the rumble of Nala's purr in her body and chest, staring into the cat's patient eyes. You love me, though, don't you, Nala? Even though I don't stand in the right place or face the right direction all the time, you would never yell at me, would you? Nala gave a soft chirp that acknowledged that Allie was always appreciated, especially when she was gently rubbing her fingers into Nala's fur on her neck and shoulders. Allie felt her body relax under the weight of Nala's furry form and the vibration of her purr. I love you so much, Allie said, as Nala's eyes closed and she started to drool, which meant that she was really enjoying the attention. Sighing, Allie again felt the emotion of feeling so embarrassed in front of her crush, and a soft sob choked her breath as she felt emotion well up out of her stomach. Somehow, it felt safe to finally let herself cry with her cat, lying on her, loving her, and hugging her as only she could. Thank you.
Wow, I want to read more. Thank you. And Len, would you read a special page from your chapter for us?
Bear with me here. Sorry, I had it lined up, but then Kindle moved it. Okay, here we go. All right. I can hardly remember math, science, or other classes that followed in the haze after homeroom. It seemed it was a day of survival, avoiding the landmines, such as bumping into some popular kid or saying something that might give me a nickname to carry through into graduation. Lunchtime finally arrived, and I couldn't have been more stressed. Not finding the right group at lunch could define your status in school forever. I just went with the tide of kids towards the cafeteria. With every step, the whole scene became more chaotic and busy, with an internal low hum of chattering never quite dying, like I was stepping into the control room of the Death Star. I found an empty seat at one of the tables and sat down, reaching into my backpack for a brown lunch bag my mom packed with my name written in blue ink across the front. I opened it, taking stock. One peanut butter jelly sandwich, one apple, one fruit roll up, one juice box, and one napkin with a note from mom. I love you. Have a wonderful day. I looked on in horror that someone would see it and crumbled it up, but I was glad that she wrote it. I took a deep breath and tried to act like I was perfectly fine sitting alone. Like I chose the spot strategically and not because I was terrified of trying to fit into one of the crowded tables. Then three boys began to sit at my table, and one peered over and looked back at me and his friends. One asked, "Who are you? Why are you here? And what type of pants are you wearing?" It was that time to be that boy from New York City who was hip and cool, or that awkward teenager feeling embarrassed and out of place. I spoke, and at that moment, my strong New York accent came out, and all the teenage boy insecurities and awkwardness just seeped out with it. That minute, I said my name, and I'm like, they're going to make fun of me like the kids back in school call me Len Nerd. I was already showing my true colors, wearing an X-Man tee. My mind was racing 100 miles an hour with with everything conceivable running through it, and I clumsily said, Len from New York. Back to you, Chu.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, it's tough to go after that, right? Okay. My chapter, 3 Wishes and Witches. If you could make 3 wishes this Christmas to light up all the hearts in the world, what would they be? We hear Frank Sinatra's voice, soft and warm, playing on an old record player. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let the heart be light. Once upon a time, on a cold and frosty Christmas Eve, inside a toasty home, the children gather around a shimmering Christmas tree. Their eyes sparkle with excitement as they gaze at the brightly wrapped gifts beneath. One by one, they pick up each box, shaking them, though they were cereal boxes, but they knew they would have to wait until the first sight of Christmas morning to experience the magic of Santa's visit. As snowflakes drift gently like flying cotton candy outside the house, the children giggle while sipping hot cocoa topped with marshmallows, M&Ms, and whipped cream, their anticipation melting away. As the camera zooms in, we see a cast iron wood stove in the center of the living room. We hear gentle cracking, popping of the burning wood, mingling with the spicy aroma of cinnamon candles. Stockings hang from the mantel, overflowing with candy canes, milk chocolates, glittering trinkets, and hand-knit gloves, creating the perfect festive atmosphere. Somewhere out there, in a forgotten corner of the world, snow fell as if it would never end, laying the wet, slushy gray ground, hidden in the darkness of an unnamed alley. A little voice echoed through the pitch-black shadows. It was the softest, sweetest, and the most innocent voice we had ever heard. When we listened closely, opening our hearts like fragile petals, we could hear and see our little Coco, hungry, shivering, and huddled beside her mom. She and her mom trembled as the icy cold cut them to the bone. All they had were each other, a torn blanket, and an old top they had found in a trash bin. Each day, they moved from place to place, trudging along in broken shoes and wet socks full of holes. Enclosed in her little world, as if living inside an abandoned snow globe, Coco didn't feel resentment or jealousy, having never known what she didn't have. She was living in her own rose-colored bubble, surrounded by boundless love from her mom. However, one thing made her very curious. Deep inside her heart, she longed for a friend. Her world was just her and her mom, and she wondered what having a friend would be like. Would it open up her world like Dorothy's journey in Wizard of Oz? Thank you. And Nana is up next.
Okay. Here goes. Not good with reading, so bear with me. One afternoon, Kimiko woke up from her nap to see Hiroshi sitting on a tiny wooden stool by the bed. Hiroshi made a habit of always patiently waiting for Kimiko to wake up from her afternoon sleepy time, never waking her up. Even at age 3, Kimiko could see something was off on this day. Hiroshi's solemn expression was unmistakable. Did Neko get hit by a car? She immediately thought. Hiroshi took Kimiko's hand as a tear slid down his rotund, chubby left cheek. He held up their favorite handmade wooden airplane. handing it to her, gesturing they should play. Kimiko wasn't interested in playing, but was interested in knowing what Hiroshi's obvious sadness was all about. Unable to look her in the eye, he held the airplane up high over their heads, making the buzzing sound of a propeller while choking back his tears. Little Hiroshi was moving with his family to Okinawa. Kimiko felt her heart sink to the first time in her life as she experienced an inexplicable sense of loss. An unfamiliar adult emotion for a 3-year-old, to be sure. This was not like losing a toy. This felt so profound and devastating that she could not even bring herself to cry. Hiroshi, choking back his tears, avoided her gaze by staring at the toy. "Don't worry," he uttered. "When I grow up, I will visit you in my airplane." He finally turned to her, wiping his tears and reaching out with his pinky. "Promise, promise, promise. I will see you soon." They never did. These were the last words spoken between those two friends. The end.
Wow, thank you, thank you. Andrea, would you share your chapter?
Yes. In the most unexpected of ways, my daughter Alexa became a rock of support. She saw me at my best and worst, with no filter to hide my vulnerabilities. From a young age, she displayed a wisdom far beyond her years. Her quiet presence became a reminder that true friendship sometimes blossoms right beside us, in places where might not always notice. She didn't offer me solutions or critiques. Instead, she simply stayed there without judgment. Her calm support was and continues to be a harbor in the middle of my storm. And through her, I learned that a true friend might be someone you thought of in a different role, someone you never expected to lean on. Alexa's kindness and empathy became a mirror of what I needed to find in myself. Looking back, I see that real friends are those who don't sugarcoat things, but also don't let you sink. They push you to comfort your fears, to see your worth, even if you are struggling to believe it yourself. They are the ones who walk with you through the darkness, reminding you of the light within. They don't offer quick fixes or shallow words. They offer themselves steady and unyielding beside you, no matter how low you may feel.
Wow,
Thank you.
so
Wow, I
much.
didn't know that one either. Thank you. Well, my little paragraph is also about you. At 15 years old, during my sophomore year of high school, I found myself sitting in a courtroom, watching my mother's trial. There I was, listening to the United States of America versus Andrea Dumitru. We were divided by a wooden bench, a barrier that had bore the weight of countless tears and whispered prayers. I couldn't have felt more alone than I did in that moment, with all the eyes of pity and judgment on me, from the jurors to attorneys and detectives of the U.S. seated beside me. "She's a criminal like her mom," they whispered, words I had already heard much too often.
Thank you, thank you. James?
I never know what will prompt me to examine my life from a previously unexplored angle. Several years ago, I was in a discussion group concerning boundaries between clients and practitioners. To my surprise, I concluded I was using my client interactions as a replacement for friendship. Since this occurred to me in the presence of other professionals, I initially judged this to be unprofessional behavior, and I should make more of an effort to cultivate friends outside of work. Once I left this atmosphere of peer pressure, however, I reflected more deeply on what friendship meant to me. I checked off what elements characterized my client interactions that would make them a suitable replacement for friends. Honesty, vulnerability, trust, acceptance. These all sounded like the qualities I craved in my actual friendships. Ultimately, I felt that my client interactions were satisfying my need for friends and not simply acting as a replacement. The importance of boundaries notwithstanding, I was reassured by this realization, and the initial guilt I felt at being an irresponsible professional quickly evaporated.
Thank you, James. Amy.
Okay. So I'm reading the 9th point I wrote, titled Gratitude for Disappointment and Betrayals. What? Are you serious? Gratitude for betrayal? I know it sounds impossible, right? No one really teaches us to be grateful for betrayal or disappointment. I certainly didn't learn it growing up. Most of the time, we're told to push forward regardless of the pain. Forgiveness is often touted as the answer, but forced forgiveness doesn't work when you can't feel it. When you can't forgive, you may be left feeling inadequate, frustrated, or even more angry. So, how could anyone feel grateful? The truth is, gratitude can come later in retrospect. Pain and suffering forces us into action and decision making, and that action or decision is movement, and movement is change. When you can look back and identify the gift that came from the betrayal, that's where the gratitude is. Often the gift outweighs the pain, at least in my experience. That's it.
Thank you, Amy. Debbie.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay. I was 8 months pregnant with our first and only child. As with most hungry pregnant women, I could hardly wait for the delightful spread of food that was waiting for me. You know, all of the traditional holiday foods that we prepare in the South, plus a whole lot more. The hostess took us to our table, and right next to our table sat a woman with a baby in a car seat. Oh, great, I whispered to Ted. Just because I'm pregnant, they seated us next to a tiny infant. Ted and I were both thinking the same thing, that the last thing we wanted to hear was a crying baby. We almost asked to be moved to another table. But after a few minutes, a man walked up with a loaded plate of food and sat down with the lady and her baby. He looked up, and we saw that it was the real estate agent who sold us our house only a few months previously. Coincidence? I believe it was divine intervention. Pete introduced us to his wife, Kate, and their infant daughter. And from that moment on, the conversation between us never stopped throughout the entire feast. And the baby didn't cry either. Kate asked for my phone number as she was leaving and said she'd call me to check in sometime after our baby arrived. Little did any of us know that the chance meeting between us at a random restaurant on Thanksgiving Day would impact our lives forever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Penicles? Penicles.
Yes, one second. I'm ready to right. Out of the most challenging moments of my life, I discovered my true friend, Officer A, who became a source of unconditional support and inspiration transforming my life in ways I never imagined. He was a kind, smart, humble, loyal, wise, and fun friend. A profound positive influence he has had and continues to have on my life is both remarkable and heartfelt. He stands by my side with courage and faith. Indeed, we often find special, lifelong, heartfelt, and inspiring friendships in the most unexpected places and circumstances. Enduring, unconditional, honest, loyal, and joyful friendships are what make life beautiful and the journey a fun and memorable experience. Friendship is one of the most important relationships we have in life. While it can be challenging to recognize true friends and even tougher to be a good friend, these connections are priceless and an infinite blessing of joy and hope. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.